the offense obviously needs adjustment without Caitlin. Just what differences did you guys see kind of playing live without her tonight?
Yeah, I think with and without her, it's a new system, a lot of new players. We can keep saying that, but at some point we have to turn the page, right? We gotta be able to slow down, to click, to see the mismatches, and so I think this was a kind of gut punch for us. We're going to come back tomorrow, practice more focus, more energy. We know we want to be at the end of the season, but we're not just going to get there. Sometimes it sucks and it's a grind, and that's where we're at right now. But I do think short term and long term, it's going to make us better.
What were some of those things, mentioning practice tomorrow, that you think you need to work on?
Attention to detail, knowing personnel, defensively, knowing the schemes. I think a lot of our breakdowns today was just knowing who you was guarding, knowing where you need to be based on who you were guarding, whether that's off the ball or in the gap. We just weren't sharp. We weren't sharp enough to be a contender for anything tonight. And I think a big part of tomorrow is being able to defensively be sound so we can get what we want offensively.
That's kind of my question. Would you guys say that the points in the paint, allowing 48 points in the paint, is it all kind of a factor of what you just said, just the attention to detail, or is there anything else that kind of stuck out for that aspect of the defense?
Yeah, I think any professional teams that gets to the paint and get 48 points from it, you won't beat them. I think we got to be intentional about guarding your yard, guarding your individual person, and utilizing your help when you need it. But I just think attention to detail and being able to know that it's important, that everyone is a factor, everyone's important, no matter who we play. And I think getting punched in the mouth early is kind of humbling because it goes to show where you need to be.
Okay, follow-up, yeah. Just, I guess, offensively, it felt like maybe you guys, did you feel like the offensive issues were more shot selection, getting the right shots, just them not hitting, the flow? Like, what could you pinpoint?
I won't speak for Soph, but I just couldn't hit a rock in the ocean today. But it could be a combination of all those things. It could be selectively one of those things. But I think overall, you got to be in tune to know how to win and be a pro. And I think we could take this game for what we want. And as a professional athlete, we got to be able to turn the page and utilize it for what it was. But I do think, going into these games, we have to have a scheme offensively and defensively, and I just think that we were poor at it tonight.
I also think we're just getting outworked too. We're getting out hustled. Our attention to detail. That's just not who we are. We need to be dogs. We need to be physical. When people are physical with us, we kind of bounce back a little bit, and we can't do that. And I know that's not in our DNA. And I think you said it just perfectly. Kind of getting punched in the mouth early is kind of humbling, and that's what we needed. But we just got to outwork people. That's who we are. That's what we're about, and we have to start showing it.
Anthony Gilbert, ESPN. My question is, offensively, was it Washington's defense that hindered getting Aaliyah the ball in the post, or was it more of that attention to detail?
I mean, I think it's both. They're a young team and they work hard and they're physical and they're fast, so you have to give credit where credit's due. I also know what we have in the locker room, though, and we're not living up to individually and as a team where we're supposed to be right now. And we got to turn that page. I know we just keep talking about that in the locker room, but sometimes enough is enough, right? And she's a heck of a player, AB, for us, and sometimes we just got to find her. They played really good defense on her, but that doesn't mean she can't come set screens. That doesn't mean we can't find her on the opposite side, swinging the ball. And so they did a good job defending her, but there's things that we could have done better offensively to get her involved.
I agree.
Kind of Kelsey described this game as getting punched in the mouth. Just what did you see from your vantage point on the sideline?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, Washington's a good team, and they've had the lead in the fourth quarter in almost every game that they've played. They play hard. They're selfless. They move the ball. They cut hard. They play well together, and they kept coming at us. And at times we had breakdowns on the defensive end in our coverages. Their physicality, I felt like on their defensive end against us, took us out of our flow, particularly in the second half.
And obviously, you guys needed to adjust without Caitlin too. Is there anything you could pinpoint with the offensive issues today?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, not having any points in transition, is one that's obvious. I mean, Caitlin is really good at finding rim runners, getting the ball up the floor. That's one. We got to be better there. not relying so heavily on dribble handoffs and on-ball screens. And I know we talked about this pregame, feeling comfortable getting to our off-ball actions. I mean, that's still a growth process for us and a growth edge for us. You can see when physicality happens or defensive pressure picks up, it's like we revert to some old habits, settling for one-on-one, settling for jump shots, settling for dribble handoffs, instead of trusting the process of moving the ball and of playing in some off-ball actions. And, on nights that we don't hit shots and we struggled from the floor, and you got to give their defense a lot of credit for that. They kept us uncomfortable. They kept pressuring us. We've got to be able to rely on our defense. And there were times where it was really good. And there are times where it was really good and then we didn't finish the play and we gave up an offensive rebound, or we were really good for, 22 seconds and not in the last 2 seconds. But it takes being really good all the time, and it takes finishing plays.
Yeah, and Aaliyah was 4 or 5 too, but she seemed to not get as many touches as she usually did. Was that defense from the Mystics, kind of Caitlin not being out there as well, or just how can you get her more involved?
Yeah, I think probably a combination. Certainly she gets so many of her touches in the two-man game with Caitlin on the floor, and it looks different now without Caitlin on the floor. Making it a point of contention to get her touches on the block as much as in the two-man. I thought they did a really good job of changing bodies every couple of minutes and being physical with her and forcing her to defend on the other end as well with their post players. And we've got to be better as coaches of trying to get her in positions to be successful.
Steph, when the players were here, they had this kind of attitude of, we're not going to use Caitlin's absence as an excuse for some of the breakdowns that happened on both ends of the floor. Is that the sense that you got to, or kind of what you tried to instill in them of the fact that these are issues that, regardless of whether or not she's on the floor, need to be cleaned up, or have been issues even when she was playing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have a deep team for a reason. We added quality depth in the off season, and our ability to collectively step up and give a little bit more has to be there. Certainly, we're going to look different. With not just what Caitlin brings from a straight shot making standpoint, but facilitating standpoint as well. Our pace was different without her on the floor. I mean, there are so many things that she does outside of the obvious for our team, but. And as I said before, it is an opportunity for us to grow. And the defensive miscues, the defensive breakdowns, the fouling, unnecessarily. I felt like there were too many fouls at times where we were forcing Washington to hit tough shots. And we've got to live with them making tough shots. They're pros, right? But what we don't want to do is compound that by fouling or breaking down when we get a good defensive stop and giving up, offensive rebound putbacks, taking bad shots that lead to runouts. I'd venture to say I can't remember how many fast break points they had, but I'll bet they got 4 to 5 layups just on our poor shot selection. Those things have to get better, and they have to get better every game. And I feel like we've been a little bit stagnant in our growth area in those.
How would you describe the impact of Sykes on both ends tonight?
I mean, Sykes is just a player. I mean, she's tough. She's got a good feel for the game. She understands, when to attack, how to attack, the way she gets downhill. She's got a toughness about her on the defensive end of the floor. She's a really great leader for this young ball club, and they play like she plays, with that toughness, with that swag. And she's been a huge impact for them.
Coach, is there anything you think the WNBA, the league, could do to better protect the safety of stars like Caitlin and other players when it comes to some of the rough play, intentionally rough play in some cases? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I don't feel like there's any more intentionally rough play than there is in any basketball game, men's or women's, really. Obviously, I think we can get better in certain areas as far as how we call the game, consistency with how we call the game, protecting. We've made a real point to protect airborne shooters on the perimeter. I don't think we do as good of a job at that near the rim. Are we going to say that we want a free-flowing offensive game, or are we going to have tough, grind-out physical games? And whatever way it is, the players will adjust, and coaches will adjust. But we can't have it be one way one quarter, another way another quarter. So, I don't think collectively as a whole the league has to step in and do something. I just think that there has to be some improvements in certain areas.
What would be the main one, you think, if you could just pick one top
Are you trying to get me fined again?
No.
Because I did just get fined.
Coach, obviously Caitlin spends a lot of time before lots of games, signing autographs, things like that. Why was it important to her to, I think your social media team said it was 12 minutes she was out there signing, the full length of the court. Why was that important to her on a day when she's, not playing, and, why did she feel the need to sort of, still make her presence?
Yeah, I don't want to speak for Caitlin because I think everything, decision that she makes is personal to her. But Caitlin was that little girl that watched this league. These players that are playing in this league right now, most of them grew up dreaming of playing in the WNBA. They've only known the WNBA. And when you are that little girl who eventually gets to live out her dreams, you want to empower the next generation of players. You want to give that hope to the next little girl that's in the stands or little boy that's in the stands to accomplish their goals and their dreams. It might be sports, it might be something else. But the way that you approach being great, the way that you approach the work, the way that you approach things from a humility standpoint, all of that stuff matters. And when you've been someone who is living out your dream after sitting in the stands watching your heroes, you give back. And that's my assessment. I'm not speaking for Caitlin, but that's what I see in her.
What did you make of the atmosphere in Baltimore today?
Yeah, it was great. I thought the fans were great. I thought they were engaged. It was a great turnout. So it was really exciting.